Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Depths, back with another Kamihime PROJECT video. Now, before I get into this, there's one thing I do have to mention. I've been seeing quite a lot of news about a whole bunch of different things, like a whole bunch of censorship issues running rampant and all that. That's kind of the reason why I slowed down on using any sort of music for these type of videos, because I noticed that was like turning into a growing problem. So, in the case of like gameplay, I'll still possibly try to do that, but they're getting really stupid with some of this stuff, and now there's even a politician trying to push that anybody that quote-unquote violates DCMA, or however you pronounce it, basically the people that's all over copyright, there's one politician that's sitting up trying to push for quote-unquote jail time for doing that type of stuff, which is dumb as hell. So, given how stupid a lot of governments are starting to be, like, even Australia's censored a whole bunch of stuff too, and then there's also big companies like Sony and Nintendo, and they're all just running real rampant with copyright strikes. I have to give this fair warning. If anything happens to my channel, I'm just going to say screw it, because I don't make much off of this channel anyways. Like, I won't disclose actual income I've gotten, but I don't even make, like, I don't make 4 digits off this channel. So, it's not that much of a loss to me. Same time, it's a lot of screwed up mess, and I can understand why other channels also gone down for that type of stuff too. It is also why I would probably not try to do any sorts of streams or anything as well, because let's just face this one simple fact. There's been a few Kamihime PROJECT videos that actually gotten taken down before, and I can only guess that they are either copyright from that game or copyright from a different game where people uploaded music, so it's not necessarily worth the risk. And then, unfortunately, if they really want to do all that stupid stuff, then there's a possibility of getting a copyright strike just for sitting up doing gameplay at this rate. So, if companies want to get stupid and start ruining themselves into the ground, so be it, because people will eventually fight back on that one. I'm just waiting for it to happen. But anyways, getting back on point, this event is an Advent event, and it is dark based, so light's going to have the advantage. However, I have to point out that it's recently been getting very, very hard to build a light team, and fire isn't too far off from that either, but we did just recently do the Union event to get a very good fire weapon, and a water one too. But keep in mind that the later you start, the worse it gets for free-to-play for light and fire. So I would suggest using elemental advantage on this if you can. At the same time, you don't have to, because of both the free-to-play reason, and on top of that, you'll never take weakness damage, so you really can't use anybody on this one. In fact, there's always a mission to use an element that isn't even advantage, so we'll see what that one is. But again, dark element, and if you are using dark against this event, then your chances of debuffing is going to be the worst among any element because of how debuffing works. So I have to mention that. Because given how debuffing works, it is essentially weakness. Like, if you're weak against that element, you have the worst chance. If they're the same element, it's not as bad as weakness, but it's still less than normal. And if you have advantage, you have a higher than normal chance in order to debuff something. So it's not just based on resistance, it's also based on elemental advantage or disadvantage. So, or same element in the case of light and dark, they got the worst chances for that. Now, events, of course, you grind out the event, trade for stuff. It's been done quite a lot of times before. Now, in this instance, the weapons are more dependent on what you may or may not need. So double check on stuff you might need, like Exceed or something, because there is an Exceed weapon here. But the priority I would easily give to the SSR at Dolan, because of her stats and her effect. So I would give the SSR Idolin more priority than the weapons in this case, but the weapons still can have a decent priority. However, there is no known repeat of this event. When it does happen, one weapon will go into final break, like all the previous advents have, and it will be a case of the one with the lower trade rate, which I think is an exceed weapon. That one should go into final break, so may or may not be a good idea to hold on to that. It depends. Now, also, high priority is definitely the gacha tickets. They would have had priority for the raid Kamihime ones, but honestly, I think the premium has more priority, because if you've been diligent enough with these type of events, you may or may not have already pulled all the free SR Kamihime. Or like me, where you've gotten every single one of them from the raid events themselves. So, the raid Kamihime ticket is another case of if you need it. I would say the premium ones are more priority than the raid Kamihime. However, the one ticket that is just strictly Kamihime weapons in general, not just, it's not specific to raid events, that Kamihime ticket always get, because it's your best chance among all of these tickets to get a SSR Kamihime, if you ask me. Because it's not guaranteed, but it cuts out any Idolins from popping up off of that ticket, so. And then on top of that, the weapons that don't give you a Kamihime that can pop up between SR and R, they won't show up either. So it's basically narrowing the gacha pool, because that's something that's been a real recent irritation, because the gacha is becoming quite strained due to the sheer number of characters, and at this point Idolins too, that you can pull. So the more you lessen those chances, the better, and that's why the Kamihime tickets should be the best option. Now, there also are magic jewels up to 3,000. That's a high priority as well, because of the fact that you can use that to either extend your item slots. Like you may still be limited on weapon slots or accessory slots. It depends on what you've done and how much extensions you've gotten already. And even still, that can be used for pulls, and I know immediately what that's going to, because there is a Kamihime I want to go over. Now, other things that are worth getting to is definitely those books, if you happen to need a quick little catch up in order to start getting different Kamihime, or trying to awaken some, or if you're trying to essentially just get the 4th tier souls. Speaking of which, the soul points are there for that too, if need be. But there isn't too much more other than that, because it's mainly just filler stuff. Now, I'm going to skip past what these are, because these are just explaining the weapons and the add-on. Now, the big thing about this event is that you can do Ragnarok once a day, but the main thing is to try and grind out Expert at the very least, but if you can, Ultimate. And if you really can, go for Ragnarok for the, I forgot what they're called, but those green orbs that drop from there. Now, as per usual, I'll skip past beginner and standard, because those are easy enough. If you level up enough, you won't even have too much of an issue with those, because standard is a little bit harder than the what was it, Epic Quest. Now, a good place to gauge if you're strong enough for this is indeed the weekly advents, because that's permanent content, and that's on the same level as these. So that's a good place to gauge how far you can grind. But getting into the fights themselves. Now, I don't know what they called her in the game. I only took a quick glimpse of it, but it's Cath Palug or Cath Palug, or it's weird. But big thing with her is the fact that you cannot use BP on her. She is immune. What that means is that it's an abbreviation for black propaganda, but it's really the ability that increases the amount of turns it takes before they use their nukes, or overdrives, as some people call it. The real term is enemy burst. But she's immune to that, so you won't be able to extend it. Now, It seems like she'll even react to how many people are in sleep, and she loves putting or actually it looks like she'll put herself to sleep, but she does react to sleep in a way. And reading at this, it seems like she'll put it to herself, so it'll be random 2 times damage when in normal mode, and damage the entire team in raging, but she'll put herself to sleep. Either she'll put herself to sleep or put you to sleep. And then, if she's in normal mode and recovers, if she's in normal mode and sleep is recovered from, then it's 5 times random damage, and then sleep is reapplied. If she's in raging mode, it's the same thing for AoE, but instead with AoE damage. And then, if she's not even in like full orb count, she'll still sip and hit you 5 times, if I'm reading this correctly. So, but she won't put somebody into sleep. So, sleep is the big thing with this entire fight, and it literally does not change for any of the difficulties. So, you have to be very, very wary of the sleep status, because whenever that's removed, it's going to be a huge retaliation she'll do. And it's even worse if her orbs are full. Now, Expert, she has 700,000 HP. Ultimate, she has 1,600,000, which is more than double than Expert. And then almost double with Ragnarok compared to Ultimate, where she has 2,800,000 HP. Now, actually reading the text down here, it's basically putting herself into sleep. The thing with sleep status is that, on one hand, you deal more damage, because sleep acts like a defense drop. And I do believe it stacks with other defense drops too, so it'll still go up to the 50% limit. However, whenever you're hit in sleep status, there's a chance you'll wake up. And given that you can do 5 to 15 hits with characters, there's a very high chance of waking somebody up from sleep. They will probably at most stay asleep for 1 turn if you attack somebody in sleep. And that's if you're lucky. So, given that there's a lot of countermeasures for all this type of stuff, you do want to have a reasonably good amount of damage cut and attack, or even dark attack elemental reduction. And again, be careful with the fact that this boss is immune to the turn increase. So she has 3 turns before she'll do any super nuke stuff, and that makes her trigger stronger too. So she'll just go right back into sleep and be able to reactivate her trigger. That said, you want stuff that removes orbs from her thing, but you don't want stuff that will extend it. So what that means is you can still reduce it, but you'll still need to avoid extending it, because extending it won't work. Now, again, damage cut is very, very good. You might even need a healer for this one. So those type of souls are probably good to look at, like Joan or Andromeda. And I suggest the 3rd tier ones, because if you have a 4th tier soul, you're way over level for this and shouldn't have any issues. But I would suggest getting healing and some defense if you're struggling with this fight. And definitely pay very close attention to when she's in sleep mode, because if she's in sleep, you're going to get counterattacked. So that would probably be a good time to raise up somebody's damage cut. Also, a trick you could probably do, because I see no resistance towards it, try putting something that will interrupt her turn entirely, like paralysis or dizzy. because if that happens, you could probably bypass the trigger. Of course, it's not guaranteed with the Dizzy, but you may want to give it a shot. Now, also, I should mention this too and be very real careful with this one. These fragments, these Dragonic Eye Shards, are highly valuable. However, they do use those green orbs, so if you are kind of low on the green orbs, you may want to ignore that. However, there's a counter argument to that as well, considering that these things are not only used for awakening Kamihime, they're also used for the 4th tier souls, the S-class ones. And on top of that, they're going to be used for very, very powerful weapons later down the line. I think it's within 3 months or so. There will be some very, very strong weapons that are centered around Pride and Vigor. And those weapons will take 50 Dragonic Eyes in order to get 1 copy. And you can only get 1 copy of each. So you will have to use SSR break limit items for those things. We call them weapon bricks, basically, because it literally looks like a brick. But you will need that. So it's up to you if you want to go after these Dragonic Eye Shards or not. But my suggestion, only worry about it if you've already got a lot of orbs. Like, I'd say, like, if you have a good 10 or 20 green orbs, you're safe. As for what you can get from this, the Adona herself, Sleep is her main thing about the fight, so of course that's a status she'll give you when you summon her. I don't know how good the success rate is on it, but if it lands, it's a free turn and a defense down. However, if the enemy does wake up from sleep, it's not a free turn. So you gotta keep that in mind. It's still a bit of a risk for that one, but you're still doing more damage while something's under sleep. So it doesn't mean it's a waste when sleep lands. It just means that it's not full potential. Now, her main effect, if you know about the 140% Idolans, Monogarmer, and Anubis, which you should, because preferably they are some of the best Idolans in the game, if not the best. They have a special effect where you have to match sub-slots in order to get the most out of their effects, their main effect. She's the same case, it's only up to 50%. So she basically does the same thing as Anubis, but only up to 50% Dark Elemental. Anubis will do 100 at the start and then get stronger. In the case of this Idolan, it starts at 30 and goes up to 50. So if you are using her as a main Idolan, then keep in mind that you need to have all 5 sub-slots as a Dark Idolan in order to get the most out of her, which you should do anyways because of the element matching thing that Idolans give you for a boost. That said, though, her stats honestly aren't too bad because she gets a very good amount of HP and almost 2,000 attacks. So personally, I do like seeing stats like that because HP is very important as well as attack. So if you don't have enough of each, you're still going to have a really, really troublesome time with a lot of these fights. Now, the weapons, like I said, this is where it's a little bit interesting because, and it wasn't a burst weapon too. It's the Stinger one that I actually get final break if this gets repeated. But these weapons, like I said, this is where it gets interesting because you get a medium assault. Oh, it's not Stinger, but it's a medium assault, and it's barrage. Because that's triple attack, a small barrage. Now, small barrage at skill level 20 is only like a 1% increase in triple attack rate. However, again, this could final break later on, so you never know. So it might be reasonable to keep a copy of this just in case. Because if this repeats, and we come around to the repeat and it turns out that it's a really good weapon, then you might regret it. Otherwise, you could just get rid of it later. So it may be worth holding on to a fully done copy of this, especially since the materials for it don't cost that much altogether. Now for the axe is the one that has Exceed. It is a trickier one to get because it'll take more materials overall in order to get a fully upgraded copy of this. However, Exceed is somewhat tricky to get your hands on. So if you still need an exceed weapon, this can help you out. And it also comes with the side effect of giving small defender. So that said, it's dependent on what you need for these. Personally speaking, if you have been keeping up with weapons and all that, you shouldn't need either one of these, but you still might want to hold on to the sword just in case. But it's not like these are a waste as well. It's still dependent on where your grid's at. That's the major factor. Even the SR as well, because of course you might need more assault if you're really weak. So SR assault will simply be a good placeholder. The hammer, however, there's been a few dark hammers that's been given out, and this might help towards hammer grid to activate it just as a placeholder for that. So again, another case of you might need it, but it's less likely to happen compared to the SSR weapons. You're less likely to end up using the SR. So again, process what you have when you're on your dark grid and just go from there. Now, as for the challenges, they always have these missions where you have to do it with like certain rarities or with like an element. It's always SR or below for both expert and ultimate for one mission each. Ultimate also has a second mission where you get one of those Dragonic Eye fragments for clearing with R Kamihime only. However, you also would have to clear ultimate with Thunder element. So if you do Thunder or Kamihime, you will clear all 3 ultimate missions like that, and if you do it without an elixir, a 4th one. So that's something to consider. Expert, you just need to have SR below, and in the case of Ragnarok, you just need to not use an elixir. So if you can do all that, you get extra stuff. Now, that's all for this event. Again, it's really dependent on what you need. The one true thing you absolutely should get regardless is the Eidolon, because you will at least sell her for Eidolon orbs at the very least, and the Eidolon orb shop will get better later on if you've already gotten all your Kaisers, because the Kaisers are like 10,000 orbs each. Even still, you might need orbs for the S-class souls, so there's that as well. But if you're using her, then she can go into sub slot or main slot. It's good either way. But now there is one more thing I want to cover. She just came out before this event, and I absolutely must cover her because she is very good, especially if you somehow have a light team with a lot of vigor, which is kind of tricky to pull off without giving up too much assault, unless you're like me and spent. But I feel a need to mention her, so I gotta scroll way down because we have a lot of characters now. But anyways, the white version of Shiva, I have to explain how things work with her because she's a very interesting case, and she is heavily vigor focused, just from how her stuff works. Now, first and foremost, when she has a burst, she'll end up putting a buff on herself for 3 turns, and that will make her abilities go off twice. Like the damaging abilities will go off twice, which is basically all of them. It's like all the really important ones are going to go off twice like that. Now, this is somewhat important, but it's not as important as the other 2. But she will give an AoE light attack boost and grant Vigor Buff. She is the Vigor Buffer for light, because every element seems to get 1 or 2 characters that can do it. Now, Vigor, you have to keep your HP high. When you keep your HP high, Vigor starts taking very strong effects, and you can get up to 100% Vigor before it won't give you any more Vigor boosts than that. Vigor goes into a separate multiplier. Now, to break that down even further, if you go past 100% Vigor, then your HP can drop but still keep that 100% effect. So that's what happens with that. So Vigor is one of the few things you can overcap. And I suggest that people do try to get this character if you're very focused on a light team, because she is very strong for that one reason alone. But it gets even better. Now her third skill is just AoE light damage, but it is a lot of AoE light damage. 6 to 7 times multiplier is very high in this game. And again, if she's under that burst buff, it will go off twice. So that is quite a lot of damage. For comparison, that going off twice is basically 12 to 14x. Medea does a 10x. So in one turn, she can technically do more damage than Medea in one skill. But that's a bit of a catch because of the fact that if you got Medea's triple cast, and of course that's going to do 30 times. But again, like normal circumstances, Medea's best hit is like 10x in one cast. This will be 6 to 7 in one cast. However, it can go off twice quite easily. And then the biggest thing about her is the fact that she has her first ability that not only will go and damage one enemy, but it also increases her burst gauge. And that goes off twice when you do the burst. And even more so, it will go off if her HP is higher than 80%. So if she has, say, 20,000 HP and she's sitting at 19,000, then it's going off twice. So again, she's very, very Vigor focused. You have to really keep her HP high, but when you do, she does so much. Essentially, her burst buff combined with the assist ability, you can literally use her first skill 4 times in one turn and then still do a lot of AoE damage. And the fact that you can light attribute and Vigor buff before all that happens, that's insane. That's very insane. It is a lot of damage. I don't know what the caps are for her ability damage, unfortunately, but it should do quite a lot and start really racking up. As for her Vigor buff, it is 35.5% added to Vigor. In my case, I have 41% Vigor. However, I have an Eidolon, a Guardian Eidolon that will multiply by 1.4. So I got over 50% Vigor, and she will bump it up to 85% when I get her, because I will eventually get her. I will miracle ticket her if I can later down the line. But the current miracle ticket does not have her on there, so unfortunately you can't pick her. That's why I feel I need to mention her, because she is very, very strong. A lot of light mains were actually looking forward to her. And her weapon is also another little interesting case. However, I would probably just skip this, if you ask me. Because it says additional damage if your HP is more than 80%. So if you do put it on a soul, then it can start racking up quite a bit of follow-up damage, if you ask me. Because when you do a burst, it'll do additional damage like Hector and Siegfried's weapons. But the thing with this is the fact that it is large stinger for the main thing, and it is small strength when you final break it. That is not too good of a combo. I mean, the Assault Defender is always good, but it's small, and the stinger is large. If that was flipped around, then it'd be a different story. Like, say, large Assault with stinger and Defender being small. That would be a lot better. So, the weapon itself, it's a maybe, but it does have pretty high stats. So, again, it's a bit of a maybe, but personally, I wouldn't worry about the weapon. I worry more about her. However, I do feel a need to mention this too. Looking at this, there is a few characters that are coming up quite soon that people may or may not also want to save up for. Keep in mind that Light Shiva is permanent. So, if you're more worried about limited Hime, we had so many limited Hime, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Like, for instance, let's go back here. Like, we had DWU, then we had Water Chernobog. We didn't get Guan Yu because we never got that crossover, but we had Dark Nua. On the horizon is Thunder Soul, SSR Nyarlathotep, I never know how to pronounce her name, but there's also Fire Tish. There is quite a lot of limited Kamihime on the horizon, so you may or may not want to save up your jewels for that. Personally, I don't want to aim for any of those limited Kamihime, no matter how good they are, because I'm more focused on permanent Kamihime since they're way easier to work with. And while a lot of them are good, the limited ones, it's still a bit of a hassle to try to like save up jewels for all that type of stuff, especially since there's so many back to back. So it's more like pick your favorite and go for that. And personally speaking, I wouldn't pick any favorites out of them until maybe Fire Tish. But that's just me though. But there is a lot of limited Kamihime on the horizon, so I feel a need to point that out. We've had a few and there's still more. And then later down the line there's going to be another rush of limited Kamihime. It's a lot. It's a lot. In fact, one of the very, very, very strong light ones is going to be Light on ahead, and she's limited, but she's not till like next year, like late next year. So I feel a need to mention that you should pick and choose when to pull. Light Shiva is very good, don't get me wrong about that, but she is still permanent, so optimally it would be better to chase for a limited Kamihime. Optimally. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow it, but it's still logically better to save for a limited Kamihime. Now, only other thing I feel I need to mention is the fact that we just recently had awakened Nephthys. She is very, very strong. I've already covered her from a video. The next awakening isn't for a while, so it gives you a bit of time to build up some eyes before then. But the next awakening is yet another very strong light Kamihime, so yeah, that's something to also look forward to. But anyways, that's all for this. More is going to come soon, and eventually I will do a video that will start covering a lot of the permanent Kamihime. Like, I'll start going through all of the permanent Kamihime. So look forward to that, but it is going to be a long video because there is so many Kamihime to cover. Our current SSR Kamihime gacha pool is over 100 Kamihime, and it's only going to grow more. That's why the pool rates are a little bit tricky, because the way the pool rates work, it's rumored to be half Kamihime and half Eidolons when an SSR pops up, so that's already suggesting it's a 1.5% rate to even get any Kamihime on the list. It's not confirmed, but some tests I've seen before actually do hint towards that. Now, add up the fact that even without that, the SSR pool is split between all these characters, and it's not an even split. We've already seen that from Eidolons. But it is essentially, if you say an even split, either roughly about 40 Eidolons or so and over 100 Kamihime, so we'll say 140, and they're splitting a 3% rate. That's a lot to deal with. And even worse is if it really is an even split between Eidolons and Kamihime, because if it is, then you got 100 Kamihime splitting a 1.5% rate. And assuming an even split, that's already like 0.015%. And that's multiplied by 30. So it would be roughly a 0.45% to get the Kamihime you really want on a rate up. So that's why I say limited would probably definitely be, like, limited should be priority. It really should, because there is a lot of them. However, if they're not a crossover one and you do spend on a game, you can pull from them later down the line. Like, they'll come back. It's the crossover ones like DWU, and unfortunately Guan Yu we missed out permanently on because Ikitosen crossover is not happening. It's those crossover ones where you may or may not see them again. We will see another Haruhi crossover, so people will get another shot at her. And we will see more Kamihime events too, so we'll see them come back as well. However, Grisaya, there was Walkure, I forgot how to pronounce it. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing Ikitosen. We are not seeing this collaboration with the VTuber DWU. They're not coming back. Like, they are confirmed not coming back because especially Ikitosen, because the company behind Ikitosen went under, so sucks for that one. I was looking forward to her too, but sucks for that one. But a lot of these other Kamihime that you'll see, they'll come back. So if you're spending, and I think there will be a free method to get them too. You'll have chances at that later on. But again, pick and choose when to pull. Can't stress that enough. Pick and choose when to pull. If it is your main element, then light definitely is focus. But if it's not your main element, then maybe focus on that, or try to get a limited Kamihime to really catch your interest. Because again, there's quite a few of them. I don't necessarily know how strong a few of them are. I know Fire Tish was actually pretty good, but and SSR Nyarlathotep, it's hard to pronounce her name. She was pretty good too. I heard a little bit about Thunder Souls. She's not bad either, but there's been like 4 copies of Soul, so it's not like you can mix and match teams anyway. If you get one copy, you can't put the other ones in, unfortunately. But yeah, keep in mind that there's a lot of limited Kamihime, so. And then on top of that too, if that's not their original form, they'll eventually start liking 2 types of weapons, so that's something to consider later on. But anyways, that's all for this. This video is going on long enough, and a little bit longer than I expected, but I did have to cover some important stuff. But anyways, that's all for now, guys, and again, I will eventually go over all the permanent Kamihime in the game, like all of the permanent ones. And that's not just the SSR. I will do it for the others as well, but it is going to be long videos, and it's going to be multiple parts, so don't expect it to come out very, very quickly. It will still take quite a lot of recording. But anyways, that's all for now, guys. More will come soon, and take care.